And so, on behalf of ACI, can I offer a very warm welcome to everyone and thank you for joining our July webinar.
Yeah.
A couple of technical reminders to help us run smoothly. First of all, if you could leave your microphone on mute throughout the meeting tonight, except if you're um, asking a question or making a comment a bit later on. Also, it'd be great if you could have your cameras on. That's a much nicer thing for the presenters if they can see people's faces and responses rather than be looking at blank screens. So if you are able to put your camera on and leave your microphone off, that would be greatly appreciated. So as we gather this evening, I wish to acknowledge the traditional owners of the many Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander lands from where we join our meeting tonight. I'm on the land of the Darug people, and as I offer this acknowledgement, I pay my respects to elders past and present, and I extend that respect to all First Nations peoples in our meeting tonight. And now let us pray. Lord Jesus, a worker like me, help me and all my fellow workers to think like you, to work with you, to pray through you, to live in you, to give you all my strength and all my time. May your kingdom come in all our factories, farms, workshops, offices, and our homes. Be everywhere better known, better loved, better served. Deliver us from injustice and hatred, from evil and sin. And may our souls remain in your grace today, and may the souls of every worker who died on Labor's battlefield rest in peace. Amen. So tonight we mark the centenary of YCW with presentations from three of our current YCW leaders. Before introducing our speakers, I would like to briefly acknowledge there are many former members, leaders, full-timers, chaplains, collaborators, mentors who've joined us this evening, and we're very blessed to have such decades of wisdom and experience joining us for our webinar this evening. So thank you so much for being here. As part of our support for YCW in the centenary year, ACI has been running an appeal to support delegates to attend the National Action Conference, which is to be held in Melbourne in December. We set a target of $2,500 for our appeal, and as of this morning, we had received $1,853. So our most sincere thanks to those who have donated. And if anyone else in our meeting tonight is able to help, then please click on the link, which I'm now going to, I hope, put in the chat for you to see. So you should see the link in the chat now. If you'd like to donate to our appeal, please feel free to do so at any time during the meeting. And I think at this point now we'll introduce our speakers. So we have three speakers tonight. Our first is Achut Thuc, who is a dynamic advocate, mental health professional, and of course the national president of the YCW, a South Sudanese Australian based in Melbourne. She's passionate about mental health, social justice, and policy reform, driving change in housing, family violence, and community empowerment. A lifelong learner, she's pursuing postgraduate studies in psychology to amplify her impact. Our second speaker, Joseva Saukuru, is a state representative from the Adelaide YCW. A creative force and community leader, Joseva blends his passion for the arts and youth advocacy. By day, he works as a stage technician. By heart, he's an illustration and animation graduate and the driving force behind Solidarity Music Action, a movement creating safe places for young migrants to celebrate culture and belong. And he has a slogan, building bridges through beats, art, and action. Our third speaker is Thomas Magri. Thomas is the president of the Parramatta YCW and a contractor. From a member to a leader, Thomas has lived the YCW mission, and he is an affordable housing warrior. Now he's turning the Granville YCW house into affordable homes for migrants, fighting Australia's housing crisis with action, not words. No more talk, just bricks, change and justice. Contractor by day, housing revolutionary by choice. So welcome Achut, Joseva and Thomas. So our format this evening will be to pose a series of questions to which each of our three speakers will respond. Then, as usual, the last 20 to 30 minutes of our webinar will be given over to comments and questions from participants. So please give some thought to this as we proceed through our webinar. So we'll go now with the first question, and I'm going to ask Achut to begin with this, and then if she could pass on to Thomas and then to Joseva. And our first question is, what significant actions are YCW members engaged in for your local area? And I know Achut, as the national president, is also going to refer to things happening in the West, in Perth, in Canberra, and also just to give a bit of a national overview. So I'm making Achut the host so she can share her screen, and we welcome you to speak.
Oh, thank you, Paul. So it's so great to see many people here. Sorry, I've kind of dropped in and out at the beginning there, but I'm here. So it's just loading. And it's really, amazing to be celebrating 100 years of YCW and seeing all the former members here. Like some of you I've met, but a lot of you I have never met. And before I start, I've also like to share a reflection. And this is something that I saw earlier today, not today, earlier this week. There was backpacker, like a tourist who was rescued from WA, like Western Australian bushes. And she shared this quote with, the media. So here, humanity, solidarity, and care for one another are what truly matter. And in the end, that's what counts the most. And her name is Carolina Wilger, and she's from Germany. So she's came to Australia to do tourism and was lost in the outback for 12 days. So I think it just really resonated with me because at the end of the day, compassion and solidarity is what makes humanity go forward. So I'm going to be sharing some of the significant actions that Australian YCW is focusing on. One of them is cost of living, workers' rights, education, and awareness among young people is a significant issue. Mental health, so building resilience and belonging, because as we know, like 1 in 4 people in Australia go through a mental health, condition in one given year. And migrant and refugees, just creating belonging and transition support. And we do student empowerment, through growing the YCS movement. And we're also focusing on our digital campaign, so reaching young workers where they are at and looking into like leadership development. So just to share, like these are the YCW impact we have achieved in 2024. So there is 5 groups in around Australia. So one YCW in Victoria, New South Wales, South Australia, Western Australia, and Canberra at the moment is an extension YCW that is trying to grow through the YCS. And also looking into our AYCW national significant actions. So one of the actions we focused on as, and as a national team, like throughout the different base groups in in Australia was the vote, towards referendum in 2023. And this was organized by, as you see in there, like by Sadiq, Yolanda, Sabrina, and Joshua. So they were the main they were the main leaders focusing on this action. And through that we did a webinar, and we have and it was hosted by Irene and Monique, and people from different groups have came together and gave their voice and their and like kind of a young, what do young people think about the referendum? And it was really great to see this driven by as well YCS leaders. And one of the actions that we also focused on in 2024 was the May Day webinar. And this was focused around workers' rights. So young people spoke about their experience of casual work and exploitation at work. So we had 5 young people come together and they spoke about their experiences at work. And through that, we have we invited a union delegate from the ASU, Jess, who also like gave young people information about what's illegal at work and what's their rights. So it was really great to also see young people come together and share their experiences. Does this sound right? And if it doesn't, they know who they can reach out to. Another action, major action that came out of our National Action Conference was, and this was driven by our National Secretary Sadiq at the time. So at the end of the conference, there was the idea that we should, write letters to MPs to talk about like the different things that we have discussed in the conference, and just see how, we can like reach out to more MPs to make a change. And from that, we got, amazing responses. One of the big responses we got was from the Minister for Early Childhood Education, so Minister for Youth. And she was, impressed and calling for young people to be involved in youth parliament. And we've also held the mental health webinar. As you see, every October is Mental Health Month, and we came together and did a webinar on like understanding mental health and emotional intelligence. And then as well, Ashish, our national organizer, like shared some, techniques, breathing techniques. And just, some information about our digital engagement. So at the moment, a lot of our actions, we're trying to share them as much as possible through social media, because this is where like a lot of young people engage with, better and most. And now I'll move into local action, which is in Melbourne. I don't think Caitlin was able, to join today. If Caitlin is here, just give a wave to everyone. So Caitlin is our young engagement officer at Melbourne. And the main action that we're focused on at the moment is Youth Food Project. And Youth Food Project really has been going on since 2018. It started with like, the See Judge Act method, like where a young person was working in Woolies and saw food waste. And then from that, the action kind of started. But right now it kind of grew into like empowering young people to connect and then as well learn about their rights at work. And it's mostly focusing at the moment at, it's focusing on women's rights. So one of the major highlights that came out of this youth food project was a group of young people who were working in a dental office as hygiene assistants. And they've, through a meal, they spoke about how much they're getting paid, and they found out they were getting paid different rates. And the dentist at the time there, who was also working with them, talked to them about like their classification, and this is what they should be getting paid. And they were like really shocked because most of them were international students. And through that, like they've approached the manager and asked for a correct wage and showed them evidence that this is what they should be getting paid. So their payment was rectified. So another action that as well that people are that we're focusing on in Melbourne is also like empowering young people. So trying to do more workshops on workers' rights and as well as student empowerment, like how to develop, how to balance work and school, and just tackling social isolation and cost of living relief. Because throughout the years when we've had young people turn up to this event, a lot of them have talked about like they have not had like a healthy meal, for the past week, or they were excited to take, because there would be lots of leftovers. So they was also excited to take takeaway. So at the moment, a lot of the recipes, I love them. They're like, Caitlin is basically a one pot queen person. So a lot of the meals that we cook are really quite simple, and they're quite affordable. Like they're nothing like, fancy that, go into like gourmet and buy this, but they're quite healthy and affordable. And it just shows young people that, you know, making a meal shouldn't break your back. Thank you. And I'll pass on to, oh yeah, I'm also talking about Perth. Sorry about that. I'll just, so Miranda is here. Miranda is our, just give a wave to everyone, Miranda. So Miranda is our YO in Perth. And just a second, I've got to bring up my notes. Sorry, they just disappeared. So the main action at the moment that's going on in Perth is the student.
Would you like me to say a little bit about?
Yeah, yes, please.
Yeah.
Yes, please, Miranda.
Thanks, Achut. Hi, everybody. I'm Miranda. I'm the Youth Engagement Coordinator for Perth in YCW. And at the moment, we are currently, one of our actions is the Student Work-Life Program, where we are going around to different educational institutions and educating, collecting data on from the students about what their knowledge is with their workers' rights and identifying any gaps. And then from that data, they're tailoring the workshops to be able to educate and empower young people to advocate for themselves, look for work, be able to identify workplace burnout or toxic workplaces and how to address that, and if they're underpaid. So that is a very exciting project we have happening at the moment. And our other action that we have in progress is the mental health walking group step by step. So that's to try and simultaneously combat isolation and, holistically get people out in the community and getting active and in nature as well, because that's, proven to be good for your mental health and well-being. And yes, we're also currently working towards creating a fundraiser for our young leaders to attend the Catholic Youth Festival in October and November, and a youth leadership retreat as well. So there's quite a bit happening in Perth. Thank you, Achut.
And then there's also, you guys are working on the student work-life survey.
Yes, yes. Did you want me to go into that a little bit more?
No, that's okay.
Okay, cool.
So just here are some of the pictures from the actions. And I'll pass it in to Thomas, who's from Sydney or Parramatta, as we know, Parramatta YCW, and he's going to talk about Canberra as well. So
Yeah.
I'll stop sharing to get Thomas to share his screen, or do you want me to share the screen,
Yeah.
Thomas?
Yeah, maybe it's just easy if you keep it on.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks everyone again for joining and spending your Wednesday night with all of us. It's great seeing everyone, lots of new faces. It's exciting. So I'll speak a little bit about what's happening in Parramatta at the moment. So it's been a few exciting years these past few years. We've got a new set of workers in the team now, which is exciting, and a lot of things are happening. So the two main things that I'll talk about today that's happening in Parramatta is the affordable housing action that we're doing and the community kitchen. So I don't know if everyone's familiar, but in Parramatta YCW we have the Greenville House. I'm not sure if you remember it. This used to be our office space. It's where we worked out of it, but we felt like it was a bit underutilized, especially with the high, cost of living pressure at the moment. So as a team through See Judge Act, which everything happens through in the YCW, a few years ago we started experimenting and had a bit of a pilot to sort of start renting out half the house and have the offices in the back half of the house, and that was successful. So so now we're at a point where we've got some grant money. We've renovated the house because it's an old house. Hasn't been really upkept in the last 30, 40 years. So we've been able to fix it up a bit. And the idea of it is to be able to rent it out at an affordable rate, under market rate, for young people, for young workers, so they have access to affordable housing. Because as you're aware, the cost of housing in Sydney has reached unprecedented levels, making it incredibly difficult for young people to afford to find housing and to also afford the basic needs they need to live. And this financial strain often forces them into unsafe living conditions. A lot of the members and groups that come through Parramatta YCW, especially international students and international skilled workers, they often find cheap housing that's dangerous, overcrowded. They don't have kitchen facilities or clean and safe places to cook, to live, to study. So as a result of this, a lot of the young workers getting themselves getting in dangerous working environments, working long and dangerous hours, often overtired. Young workers are abandoning and falling behind in their studies, and all of these pressures, are a lot bigger for the international students and young workers coming from overseas. So the idea behind this project is to provide short-term housing, so 6 months to a year, for these young workers in our communities. So the idea is to provide affordable housing for young people, and also in the back of the property there's a recreation room and function room. So along with having affordable housing, we'll be doing workshops and social nights to combat the social isolation, and also teach and educate people on their worker rights and to upskill them. So the goal from this project is to alleviate the financial pressure on young workers while also supporting them and empowering them as leaders by providing affordable housing and with a supportive community. And we aim to build their confidence and knowledge to what they need to understand, to be able to understand their rights and realities, and being able to equip them with the tools to make positive changes in their lives and to reach their full potential. The next part that I'll talk about is the community kitchen. We can go to the next slide. yeah, so the community kitchen has been operating for a bit longer than the last 2 years. So there's a dedicated group of young workers and young university students who've been running the community kitchen on a weekly basis throughout the university year. Yeah, so this happens every Thursday night. They come together and cook do a big cook up. Yeah, big cook up, with the leaders preparing around 100 meals each week. The aim of this is to relieve the cost of living pressures and to address the food scarcity, as many of the young students and international students often skip meals to make ends meet. And this project and this action originated from a group of international students that were meeting with, through the roller. And a lot of them shared that they didn't have a kitchen, or they didn't have access to cook, or in a few cases that their shared kitchen vented into people's bedrooms, so no one could cook in the house. So they didn't have a safe place to be able to cook a meal for themselves or for anyone. So as a result of this, they were often not eating, and what they were eating was not nutritious and not healthy. So some recent updates of this action. So recently, the group has moved into an industrial kitchen space to enhance the level of service and increase the quality and quantity of food. I think the goal of this is to eventually get it to the point where we can, yes, cook a meal for 100 people to have dinner on the night, but also to get it to a point where people can take some take-home meals for the next couple of days to help alleviate the pressures. So the move also allows us to provide a dignified meal to those students, ensuring they have access to nutritious food. The community kitchen isn't just about food as well. It's also about giving these young workers experience and training and meeting in a group. It also teaches them lots of leadership formation and building their potential and preparing them for the workforce after they graduate. Yes. I'll move on from that to Canberra YCS, which has been exciting. And I know we have Yolanda here from there that's been doing a great job there. I've got some notes here, but Yolanda, would you like to say a few things about it before I talk about it, or sorry for throwing you under the bus a bit?
Sure.
Just a few of the key points or key highlights over the last year.
Yeah, basically the YCS group in Canberra, they've been doing a really good job. We spent quite a while learning about this caring center in Mongolia, and it was like a lot more than just like learning about what was happening. We learned about like the culture and the society and the politics there as well. So it was really interesting to learn about all of that. So we spent the whole year doing that and kind of like creating this action, trying to raise money for this caring center because it's kind of what kept people sheltered and fed, because there's a lot of homelessness, there's a lot of poverty in Mongolia. So this caring center really helped people to like find a place to stay and stay warm and dry, especially when it was really, really cold in the winter as well. So yeah, and we did a really great job raising money and speaking about it. So very proud of them.
Yes, that's great. Yeah, so a lot of exciting things have been happening in Canberra, and I think Achut mentioned earlier that it's an extension city for the YCW. So we're exploring options at the moment. I know they desperately need funding for a worker down in Canberra to help them to achieve even greater things. But yeah, so I guess that wraps me up, and I'll pass it over to Joseva.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes.
I wasn't sure. Sweet. For those who don't know me, my name is Joseva Saukuru, and I'm the current state representative here in Adelaide, YCW. I'm also a volunteer member. I help out a lot, and I've been part of YCW since 2022. So to start us off, if you could click the next slide, please, Achut. Thank you. So to start us off, we have a highlight action that we here in Adelaide have been part of for now 3 years, which is our Australian Day Action, multicultural youth music festival that we had in 2024 are the pictures that you see before you. And I think this is one of the most successful Australia Days that we had. And then we had a massive turnout with a multitude of various different cultures of people performing their home music or poetry or any form of art they were displayed in the form of performance, along with having an opportunity for us to be educated about the current status of the First Nations people and many things that we may have not known before. This action also allowed us to emphasize standing in solidarity with our First Nations people. And that on the right here, you can see we have Elder John. He was so kind enough to come and do a smoking ceremony for us, along with other procedures for the First Nation people. And we had Emma and Racheli, who are actually our two of the current youth representatives of those First Nations people, not just as First Nations, but also of both Fijian and First Nations cultural background. If you go on to the next slide, you will see one of the other actions that we partook in was the First Nations Youth Voice Forum. And this was such a powerful action that we were fortunate enough to have a great turnout for. We had three representatives come in, including Emma and Rachel, to have their perspective of what it was like growing up as a First Nation person here in Australia. What are the struggles that they faced? And it allowed us to be able to have a view into the type of life and struggles that each person's face and how similarities and differences can occur between them and us, even those of other ethnic cultures who migrated here to Australia were able to relate to their situation. We had an opportunity for us to have a Q&A in this action with them, along with creating on the bottom right, you can see the See Judge Act. What are the things that we saw, heard, learned, and what we judged from it, and what small ways we could change or impact the world with changing whether it be educating others on things that we have learned. These were some of the actions that we were able to take out from such an impactful action here in Adelaide. Finally, we have in our next slide, you will see we have multiple other actions that are occurring throughout Adelaide. We have, I think, the most well-known one here, which is our soul music or solidarity music. This one was had progressed throughout from 2022, sorry, all the way to our present time. It was originally started due to COVID, where it would help musicians and up and coming artists to come on and perform or do something, and an opportunity for us to gather together. But later on, it has progressed to be an area or space for a lot of international students who are here alone. It can be sometimes very isolating when you're in a different country and you don't have anyone to talk to or speak your language. It's created that opportunity for those who are studying internationally down here in Adelaide to come together, have dinner together, converse with one another, and hopefully bond and create strong friendship out of that. And so that is one of the big actions we've taken. We also have In Harmony, which we have occurring along with YCS collaborations. You can see on the bottom right, we've been collaborating with our YCS members a lot in trying to bridge that connection from YCS transition over to becoming a YCW member, and that's been a heavy focus for us this year. And of course, we've got multiple other actions you can see happening throughout the year. And with that being said, we've also have Sister Linda Saukuru, who is a YEO down here in Adelaide. And so I would like to open the floor if she would like to say anything else.
Thank you, Joseva. As mentioned, hi everyone. My name is Sister Lena, and I'm very blessed with the role of having Youth Engagement Officer here in Adelaide. And I think John, Joseva, you've shared it really well. I think the only thing I want to add is it's been such an honor to see how much the movement has continued growing. I know that as a national movement, we have been rebuilding since 2018. So to see how far we've come is really inspiring, and it gives a lot of hope, especially for the future, knowing that desire to support and to serve in the community is still very strong. And collaborating with our YCS has been one of our biggest priorities. As we know, most of us only have a couple years left, almost at the end of this age bracket for the movement. So it's really important that we look towards the current young people today and who's sort of going to be moving in to where we are today. So other than that, that's pretty much it. Thank you.
Thanks, Cicilina. I think one thing that I would like to add just before we move into our next question is that, with the affordable housing project, that's happening in Parramatta, which is amazing. We all know that there's a housing crisis, all around the country and possibly as well around the world. And, one of, we're actually partnering with a settlement service for this action, which is Settlement Services International. So the young people are going to be, supported by them, and, we're going to get a referral from them, if I'm not mistaken, Thomas. So they will be, well supported to try and find other housing while this is like short term. All right, Paul, back to you.
Thank you, Achut. Thank you to our three advertised speakers, and also to Miranda, Yolanda, and Sister Lena, who jumped on board to say a few things. Very welcome, and thank you for your contribution. We're going to go on and talk about the centenary celebrations, which our three speakers were able to attend in Brussels. Just a little time warning, though. We're already up to almost 7:45, so we're talking too much, which is probably great because there's so many good things to say. But as I hand over, I think, to Thomas first up this time, we might just be mindful of those times. Thank you.
Yeah, sure thing. I'll be nice and quick. So I was lucky enough to head off to Brussels for our centenary. This was my first international YCW experience, and it was a great one. And yeah, it was great meeting the community from around the YCW community from around the world, and it was great to see a few of them here today as well. So I'll get right into it. So for me, one of the most memorable and worthwhile aspects from participating in the centenary was actually one of the first days. There was a workshop on resisting the rise of the right. So this workshop was held on one of the first days, and it featured a fishbowl discussion with members from the movement from all around the world, explaining the situation in their countries. So during this discussion, we identified the common threat to young workers across the world. There was many things that came up, but these are the common things, which was sexism, gender discrimination, and precarious work and dangerous workplaces. So after the discussion, hearing the realities from all the respective countries, the conversation went into tactics, strategies and tactics that the members were using to combat these issues. For me, this was incredibly enlightening and very inspiring to learn how the young workers everywhere are standing up against these injustices and fighting for their rights. Especially, I think in Australia, we're quite a privileged country where we can do so without being in danger and without many ramifications. But it was great to hear from the young workers from around the world where that's a bit more difficult and a bit more dangerous to do so. I felt like this workshop truly unified us as a group and set the tone for the week, as we learned about each other's realities and built up strength together to fight this common threat. I guess the key takeaway from this workshop, and I think the theme that carried on throughout the next week or two, was that a threat to a young worker anywhere is a threat to a young worker everywhere. I feel like this realization brought us closer together and reinforced the importance of solidarity in our movement. And I think we all left that workshop with a renewed sense of purpose and determination, and continuing fighting for the rights and the safety of all young workers across the world. Yes, I'll wrap that up there, nice, short and sweet, and pass it on to Achut, I think. Yeah.
Well,
I think it's Joseva.
Oh, Joseva, sorry.
Yeah, Achut gets to go last this time.
If you just jump onto the next slide, you will see that we have a couple of pictures up here, so you can see our Centenary experience. And of course, I'll be talking about the Flanders exchange, which was one of the most memorable experiences for me over there. First things first, if you can go to the next slide, please, Achut. We had the opportunity to have an exchange while in Belgium, where I went to Flanders, which is based in Roeselare in Brussels, and we got the opportunity to experience what their YCW was like over there. One of the main big actions was Chameleon, which is shown on the screen here. It was a place where it's a safe space for youth, troubled youth, to come and find their ways of conversing and meeting one another. So one of the big problems that they found was that a lot of youths after school would end up going and, going down the making wrong decisions by vandalizing or causing havoc within the streets. And so they figured one of the best ways to bring youths together was to create a safe space where all the youths could come and spend their time after school together. And that's where they created our small little kids pub, I guess you could call it, where it allowed kids to come together, play games for absolutely free, just a space for them to play games, converse. But also, there's a lot of opportunities within that where they allow them to grow their social skills, be able to grow their, be able to encourage ownership within the youth doing different projects, from volunteering to empowering them to take active roles in their community. And this was such a beautiful thing to see, because now, especially here in Australia, we see a lot of youths. Some of them can be causing havoc in the streets, so that we've seen. But having a safe space like this will allow them to be able to grow and also be under the right guidance. In the next slide, we also had time to discuss our different realities with the other YCW members there, where we were able to see some similarities and differences, but also be able to try and give ideas of ways that we could improve one another's issues or struggles, giving our methods of what we did in our countries. And so this was a great opportunity for us to be able to dive deep into conversation. In our next slide, you can see we headed off to a brewing dock, which we were able to taste various drinks, which I very much enjoyed. I know how to make beer, but I cannot give you full detail. But it is a very long process, but the end result is quite beautiful. And I think it works well with what we do as well, because sometimes we want to make a change fast and we want to see that difference now. But like making a beer, it's all about the process, the journey, building it up little by little. And though we may not see the results now, the end result will hopefully help our future generation. And I think that was such a good reminder for me, and that to continue to have the desire to fight my battles. At the end, we also got the opportunity to meet their base group and engage with them playing games. And I think that was one of the most fun I've had in a while, running around the basketball court or chasing each other down. It was such a beautiful experience to converse with them and also get to know their personal experiences and struggles that they may each have been facing. And finally, we also got to discuss one of the main issues that they're battling right now in Brussels, which is divorce support for um, the young, which are a lot of young people who are youths who are struggling from divorced parents, would find themselves questioning a lot of things. And so this allowed the opportunity for those youths to come under their wing. And I think all in all, that's it. But to summarize everything, I think attending the YCW Centenary Exchange was an enlightening experience, as it revealed various challenges faced by different countries. Despite our differences, such as economic issues and social injustice, I observed the similar resilience and creativity. Each nation employed strategies to address issues unique to their country, with a focus on community and grassroots actions. The exchange emphasized the shared values of solidarity and empowerment, demonstrating that regardless of context, the human spirit or drive for change is universal. This experience as a whole deepened my understanding of what YCW was and is, and highlighted the power of collaborations towards a common goal. Thank you. With that, I'll pass it off to Achut.
Thank you, Joseva. So for me, the most memorable, like our most worthwhile and memorable experience in the centenary was really connecting with all the people. Like the first few days, we really didn't know each other much, but as it got to like towards the half 6-7 day mark, like we really started making an effort to connect despite the language barrier. So like over there, like Google Translate, Apple Translate was our friend. And really thankful to also the multilingual delegates who were there, like the people who spoke 4 languages, who helped in interaction. So it was really amazing to just meet everyone and know how long they've been part of YCW, why they joined. So it was quite like really a worthwhile experience. For me, like Joseva, I also stayed in Belgium for the exchange, but I stayed in the southern part of Belgium, so Jock Wallonie, as they call it there. And what we did, what I did, like with the group is, we visited the trade union, and there was a workshop on decolonization and experiences like of LGBTQIA asylum seekers who mostly came from West Africa to to Belgium. So this was really like a quite shocking information for me, because I really didn't know. There is a lot of people who migrate from Cameroon, Benin, all these other countries, because they're facing persecution because of their gender, but also because of other reasons. And then, there were also manifestations that were done, which we call protests here in Melbourne. So there's, a few manifestations for Palestine, and then there was one, that we did in Charleroi, near a bank that was supporting, like the arming of Israel. So it was really, just amazing to see, like, how engaged the young people are there. And the worker there, Frank, he's doing really an amazing job of just, connecting, like, tapping into like people who newly arrive in the country, because he as well, came as an asylum seeker into Belgium and been living there for 7 years. So he shares his experience with people who have, who just are also seeking asylum in Belgium. And, like for me, a personal reflection that I saw in Brussels was, the visible homelessness in, Brussels. So this was not something that we reflected on a lot, or did a roller on as a group, which I feel like we really should have, because it's a huge problem and a lot of young people are impacted by it. Because I'm someone, my professional work, I work as a mental health case worker. So I deal a lot with, homeless clients, and advocating for them to be housed in safe, affordable housing and linking them to services and things like that. Unfortunately, that's not the case so if you go to Brussels and you visit Gare du Nord station, you'd see, huge amounts of people like just sleeping rough, near the stations. And there's not really much, that the government is doing, because their new government, unfortunately, that has been elected is right-leaning. And so there's also a lot of protests against the government in Belgium. And one of the things that I saw, like, it was really quite sad, because there's no charity groups, doing meals and giving out to them, or there's no charity groups, giving out sleeping bags, things like that, things that we see also here, like, because I kind of compared it with our reality here, like, while our homelessness is really, really, bad as well, but there's always groups, out there doing something, like, giving meals, giving warm clothing and blankets and things like that. This is something that I did not see in Belgium. So that's one thing that I've reflected on. So once I came to Melbourne, like, it really impacted me, and I started researching, like, why there's so much homelessness. And one of the reasons was, like, undocumented people, poverty, and then it shows that there has been a rise in homelessness since 2022. So it has risen by 25%, which is quite significant. So yeah, that's the main thing I wanted to share.
Thanks for that, everyone. Now we're almost at the advertised closing time for our webinar, and we haven't opened the floor for comments and questions yet. So we did have one more question, which we were going to get our speakers to address, and that is that what does YCW need in order to thrive as a movement for, by, and with young people in Australia today? So can we get each of you to make a very quick comment on that, and then we might, if we can indulge another 10 or 15 minutes, we'll open the floor for questions. I think we're going to Joseva first, is that right?
Yeah, we're going to Thomas actually first.
Yeah, I'll be quick. Yeah, so basically something that the YCW needs in order to thrive. I think we need to find and diversify our funding and do a bit more fundraising. I think for a long time nationally there's been the goal to make all our workers full-time. The work is struggling having workers on a part-time rate. There's a cost of living crisis going on. It's hard for the workers and also hard for the movement. We've often lost workers due to this as well, great, good young workers. Yeah, so yeah, I think I'll leave it at that. I think it would be great. Yeah, great if the movement can get to a point where we can have full-time workers in each of the cities, and yeah, pass it on to Joseva.
I think one of the discussion topics that came up during the centenary was actually the lack of militant leaders within our young people in our current generation, and the need for re-emphasis on formation in leadership training. And I think that is also very important in being able to drive forward, as there are a lot of young people from the perspective of athlete, a lot of YCS members that are now moving into YCW. I think that formation of leadership and what it is you can do to partake as a YCW member is very crucial for their growth, and not just their growth, but as a movement's growth. And in need of that, it would go in accordance with what Thomas said, the importance of funding, being able to run programs like that, and to be able to support the initiatives that the youth would have, as they're very bold in their actions and what they want to partake in. We would need the funding to be able to support them, and I think having those formations are very crucial into aiding our movement to grow much better. Thank you very much. I'll pass it on to Achut.
Thank you, Joseva. So I'll also keep it brief so we can get into our question and reflection. So one of the things that I feel YCW really needs is just, resourcing. Like, so back then, the churches used to be like of major support to, organizations. So one of the example that I would give, like, to strengthen our engagement is the need for places like youth hubs. So in my sector, I see youth hubs as a great way for young people to engage, and the place has to be like really innovative to attract young people to come in. And if we have spaces like that where it's very innovative, like games and things like that, and YEOs, working there, and then young people dropping in, it would really help with engagement and forming young people, as that's the main goal that we're working towards, and to like, recruit members to form them and to continue the movement.
Thank you, everyone. So I think here we go. I was going to just mention that someone had asked in the chat about making regular donations. So this website that Achut has put up on the screen would be the place to go if you want to make a regular donation to continue to support YCW. The link that I put in the chat is really just a one-off appeal, which ACI is running on behalf of YCW. So you can go either way, but certainly if you want to make a regular donation, pop onto the YCW website, and that will enable you to do that. So I'm going to ask Achut to stop sharing the screen now. Maybe you can put the website details in the chat as well, so that people have them. And
if people,
we're going to open the floor now
just
for.
also want to say, Paul, like if
Sure.
people want to be involved in any way, like, through mentoring or things like that, please feel free to reach out to us. While you were young in your time and were involved in YCW doesn't mean you can't get involved anymore. So you will definitely welcome.
Absolutely, that's a very good thought. We certainly always need extra willing hands in a whole variety of things. So the floor's open for questions now. You can, or comments, if you can use the chat feature in Zoom to add your questions if you like. Also, if you look on the bottom of your screen, you'll see a little heart shaped logo there, which will enable you to raise your hand. If you click on that and then click the yellow hand, it will put your hand up on our screen so that we can see that you want to ask a question. Otherwise, wave a lot or shout out and we'll try and find you. So we do have the floor open for questions and comments for a few minutes. Perhaps I can throw one at you. I hear, no, Tony Robertson's here. Well, we should let Tony go first. He's obviously more important than I am. So over to you, Tony.
Oh, thanks, Paul. Look, one of the big issues I think we face in the church is our ecclesial understanding of working with young people. Across the diocese, our funding goes into what is called youth ministry and incredible religious gatherings. I call them the Catholic Hillsong, where there's a lot of enthusiasm, and that's beautiful. It's another generation, this whole thing of jumping for, well, anyway, I better say, but that's one of my concerns, is why is it that the church investment in young people seems to be focused on in-house keeping people busy as Catholics rather than engaging with the core issues of young people, like that stuff about divorce in Belgium was brilliant. And I don't know whether there's an answer here, but one of my concerns is we as a church are not investing in this particular issue, workers' rights and young people's future in the community. We're too focused on the in-house stuff. So I'd be interested to hear from any of those speakers on a response to that. And have you seen any strategies for addressing that imbalance in our church? Thank you.
Thanks, Tony. Excellent question. I'll leave it open for any one of our three speakers.
Yeah, I'm happy to start. Thank you, Tony, for your question. And like for me, I've seen the church as always like places where they've helped a lot of people. Back in the 70s, the churches used to, like the housing system used to be with the churches. And that didn't mean necessarily they were only supporting Catholic people. So around the world, churches and Catholic have always done actions to respond to things that are happening in the world, such as wars, exploitation, slavery, things like that. The church has always took a stance to that they're against these action, and it's against Christian values. And that's why, like, majority of the time, like, churches have responded and helped people who are not Catholic. That's why we see like these actions, as a movement with Christian roots, where it's our duty to respond to any injustice that's happening in the world. And I feel like a lot of churches around the world also do that. Anyone else wants to respond? They're open.
Yeah, Joseva or Thomas, if you want to.
I think I'll just to clarify, could you just, in simple form, is it how we can reconnect the church, or how we can help the church focus on these actions? Is that what you were asking, Tony?
Yeah. So the question is, particularly in diocesan structures, the funding goes into mega event. World Youth Day, there's a classic example of the amount of money that goes into World Youth Day compared to the funding that would going to be to support young Christian workers. Let's use that as an example.
Yeah, I do know when we were at the Centenary, there were a lot of other countries that I do know that work hand in hand with their dioceses, being able to have their support. And I think it's just depending on where you're from, it's about rebuilding that connection with them. Once again, I know, like, based here in Adelaide, we've been trying to rebuild that connection with the diocese. So then when we do eventually show them, look, this is what YCW does as a movement, and this is where we're going, they're able to see it from a much better perspective, more so than us just going up and be like, oh, we need your help. Can you do this? And I think it goes hand in hand with supporting one another. With type of movements like this, it's important that we try and support each other. And I love the fact that we're all able to work together despite our different backgrounds and religions. And that's one of the most powerful thing of YCW. And I think that's all down here. It depends where you're from, but it's that rebuilding of that relationship first, before we can help show them, oh, this is what we do, and possibly open their eyes to supporting us. But if anyone else would like to comment, more than welcome.
Yeah.
I'd like to comment.
You can. Yeah.
Like Tony, I'm from the Brisbane Archdiocese, and as he said very clearly, much of our resources goes into jumping for Jesus, basically. The problem that I have with it all is that that whatever's happening it doesn't seem to me to be coming from the gospel. So the See Judge Act, it's over the whole lot. So there's my experience, and I'm an old nun, but from a very long period of time in YCS myself, with students where I was teaching, who produced some wonderful people in Sydney who are still active, very active in politics, etc. I feel quite frustrated about the fact that we have, it's very, what we're doing with youth seems to me to be producing very self-centered people worrying about their own problems rather than, I think, the gospel, instead of contemplating the gospel and using something like, the See Judge Act. And I don't know what we do about it, but I would love to have some sort of injection into our area. Thank you.
Thanks, Imelda. And I see that Miranda has her hand up. Is that another response to Tony or another question, Miranda?
Another response.
Sure, let's go.
Yeah, so that is something definitely a barrier. Obviously, back in the day, 100 years ago, religion was the hub where a lot of people met. And now, I guess, something that we do experience from both sides, there is that stigma sometimes with young people, but then also from the church wanting to, like, in order to sometimes collaborate, they want to see young people in the church, which is great. But, however, the difficulty I experienced from Perth is, a lot of young people, whether they're studying throughout the week or then they're working a second, like 1 or 2 jobs, and then they're working on a Sunday or in an evening, they don't have the opportunity to be able to get to church. So we did a Camino earlier in the year, and that was a way that we could still bring faith out into the community. And we had 7 stops of reflection. That was, really a nice way to bring, to address and connect with the broader community through a faith-based lens. I think that's what we're trying to achieve is if, we can't bring people into church, well, we can try. And then from there, like if we start at level 10, which is church every Sunday, that could be quite a lot for someone who, is maybe working or a little bit, it's not really been to church before. So if we sort of, start with, demonstrating it out in the community, the aim is to get people, in over time. I would say I'm not sure if anybody else in the other states have experienced anything similar or, thank you.
Thanks, Miranda. I know, Thomas, you've got your hand up. Is this another response to Tony?
Yeah. I'll just quickly let's talk about my experience with this. I think I agree 100% with the sentiment. I think there definitely needs to be more focus on the people in the communities and the issues rather than jumping for Jesus culture. But I want to say in Parramatta we are quite fortunate to have a good relationship with the diocese, and we get quite good funding from them, and Bishop's been big supporter from us. But I guess going back to years when I guess the relationship wasn't as strong, I think there's this culture. I think because a lot of young people aren't going to church anymore or aren't identifying as Catholic or Christian. So I think through my experience for the first, going like 5-6 years ago, I think there was a big importance on numbers. Or we just need we just want young people to come into a room and that's it. They don't care. I sort of got the vibe that it doesn't really matter who they are, what they're doing, as long as you can bring some type of young people to this event, we're happy, because there wasn't that much young people in the church. So I guess after years of us, the YCW Parramatta operating and, I guess sort of similar to what Miranda was saying, bringing, the churches where the people are, so we're collecting young people to doing work, to taking action on issues affecting all of us. And I think they recognize that there's strength and there's power in collecting the people together. And I think through that, they've seen the importance and the power that brings. But I'll finish up there. Yeah.
Thanks, Thomas. I'm conscious that a few of our participants are starting to drift away. It is 8:15, so I think we probably have to wrap it up there. Kate Harvey's going to share something in the chat about the 100 years of YCW Women in Action, which is a very exciting event coming up later in the year. I would like to, first of all, thank all of our 3 presenters for their very inspiring and informative presentations. There's certainly a lot going on and certainly a lot of challenges that everybody's addressing. And also, again, thank to Miranda, Yolanda and Cicilina for jumping in impromptu. So that's great to have your participation as well. Also, thanks to Ashish Shalagain, our national community organizer, and Joe Magri, our national mentor, for their work in preparing for tonight. It's been obviously worthwhile. Great to see people here from across the country and also a number of international guests as well. So great to have you all with us. Finally, a reminder about the appeal. It would be great if we can get to our $2,500 goal. I'm reposting the link to our donation site, and I'm going to leave that there for a while, and I'll leave the Zoom meeting running for a little while. So if you did want to find some coin or some money to throw at that, that would be very much appreciated. And there's a number of different things in the chat as well that you'll see about different connections in different parts of the country and different ways to be involved and so on. If you can't take note of all that tonight, this video will be available on the ACI website in the next couple of weeks, and that will have all the links to the chat and everything in that as well. So you'll be able to follow up anything in there that you weren't able to get across tonight. So once again, thank you to our presenters. Thank you for all who've joined us. I wish you a very good evening, and thank you again.